Bum 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 bum.
Tomatoes?
Hello, welcome to video 4. How do I use the geometry editing brush tool, the edit function? I have a quick little example here. This one is going to take a little longer than normal. The edit options are pretty in depth and we're going to cover them completely. So if we have a BSP brush and we drag it into our scene, we have our normal functions. We can move things around, we can resize it. But let's say we wanted something different than a box or something different than one of our pre-built items. Well, we have our geometry editing functions. You can find it under modes, geometry editing, or using the Shift 5 key. When we click on it, if you'll notice, we have smaller blocks in the corners and we don't really see too much. When we turn on geometry editing, it now shows us our edges in the background and it gives us larger things we can actually click on for our vertices. Geometry editing is going to allow us to change the actual geometry of this brush. Now we're going to cover the edit, which covers these 8 sections here, and these are our basic tools. So if we clicked on a vertice and we dragged it, we're going to resize and reshape our BSP. You can click on an edge, a face and resize it. You can click on an edge itself and move it. Or you can click on a vertex, vertice, and move it as well. And this will give us this weird, funky shape. One thing to keep in mind, let's say you were trying to grab an edge and you're having issues because this program sucks with selecting just plain edges. Double clicking kind of helps, but if you notice I'm having issues here. Another nice way, if you have it selected and you go inside of your object, because the normals are facing outside, you're not going to be able to select faces. You can only select edges, and this gives you a nice way to select an edge easily because you have very little to hit except for edges and vertexes. Let's go ahead and delete this object and get into our edit tools. So let's create a new box and go back to our geometry editing and cover these 8. For the most part, these are pairs. Create and delete go together. Flipping goes by itself. Splitting goes by itself. Triangulate and optimize are basically opposites. Turning and welding are 2 different things. So how are we going to use these? Let's go with create. This one's pretty simple. For our example, I'm going to take this face right here and delete it. Now a face is just going to be when you have conjoining vertices and it makes a face. So inside of our engine, it knows that these 4 vertices formed together in a certain order will give us this face, and this face we can now texture. Here we have 4 vertices, but they're not connected, therefore we have no face. If we wanted to connect them, we could click on each of them, and they technically doesn't need to be in order. You can click on any of them like that. You should create them in order. Keep that in mind. It says the vertices must be selected in clockwise order to create a poly with an outward facing normal. So let's say we didn't do that. Let's say we clicked on that one, and then that one, and then that one, and then that one. And we hit create. You're going to find this really weird creation. So let's undo this, and let's do it properly. Click on our first one. Try it again. Hold down Control to select multiples. Click on our second, third, and fourth. You don't have to click on your original. And hit create. What it's going to do is basically go around the edges, wrap them together into a polygon, and boom, there's your polygon. If, for example, we wanted to delete this, and we went with that one, that one, that one, and we hit create, we're going to go ahead and create a triangle. And there's nothing wrong with that. We can go to here, here, and here, and create, and now we have another triangle on the other side filling in our square. There's nothing wrong with that. That's basically triangulating. And we've now gone ahead and we've created a, that's not the right one, this is the right one, there we go. And we've gone ahead and created a new polygon for our face. And if you look, you notice it's the same, except we now have 2 triangles here instead of 1 polygon. Now if you were to accidentally create this the wrong way, let's say we did this backwards on accident, and we hit create, it is created. It's not broken. It's not invisible. It is there. In order for it to, let's select it so we can see our box. And what happens is when we go in here, you'll notice we don't see anything. But when we're outside, we see stuff. That's because this polygon has the normals facing in the outward direction. So if we were to click here, this green is referring to the direction of the normal for this face. On this one, the red is referring to the direction of the normal. It's an outward facing normal. The normal determines basically where your texture is going to be drawn. When we created the polygon up here backwards, it drew the normal basically the opposite direction. Instead of facing us, when we drew it clockwise, it's facing away from us. So if we look inside, we can now see we have our polygon right there. And if we were to select it and material it, you can see the material appropriately, but it's the only one we can see because it's inside. The normals are basically inverted of what we'd expect. And that's actually easy to fix. Let's go ahead and select our polygon. So now it's selected. Let's go ahead and go back out so we can see it. And we're going to hit the flip option. It flips the normals of the polygon. And as you can see, we can now see our polygon. And we can now see the outside. If we were to select it again and hit flip, we're not going to see it again because it's now inside. You may be wondering, well, what's good about that? Well, you can create some kind of cool things. So let's go ahead and let's actually select everything. And let's go ahead and flip everything. And I don't think I select, nope, I did not select everything. Let's try that again. Okay. Select matching brush. Oh. Let's see. Oh, I hate this stupid stuff. Okay. There we go. Now that I selected everything and I flipped it, we get kind of a diorama looking thing. Keep in mind, if we were to go inside, it looks like a room. All of our normals are facing inside. But when we're outside of it, the normals for this polygon here facing to my left and the normals for the polygon facing my right, they're inside, which means since it's not two-sided, we're seeing through it. So it gives us this kind of cool diorama looking thing, or we're looking inside at something. It's an inverse cube. It's also a good way to make a room, as you can see here. Now it looks like we're in a room. Let's go ahead and select everything. Oops. Select everything again and flip it back to normal. So that is what our create and our flip are for. Delete, hopefully self-explanatory. If you click on something and hit delete, it's going to delete it. We just deleted our face. If we undo this and we click on an edge, you'll notice we're not going to be able to delete it because it doesn't like to delete edges. If we hit the delete key on the keyboard, it's going to delete everything. So that's something to keep in mind. Since the edge is connected to other things, it's not going to let us delete it. If we were to select, okay, let's try to get this thing cooperating again. You'll also notice issues when you use the delete key with something that did exist at one point in time. Let's delete it and let's start over again. Let's drop let's drop a BSP box in, and we'll go ahead and go back to editing. And we'll go ahead and, if you notice, I click on a vertice, I can actually delete just a vertice. And what that's going to do is it'll delete that vertice. Everything else is going to collapse in. Because this polygon consisted of 4 vertices, once it's deleted, it's going to collapse down to the 3 and make a polygon out of what's remaining. And you'll notice something we talked about earlier. This is missing, but we can click here, and here, and here, and create, and then now we filled it in with another polygon. If we were to go ahead and texture that appropriately, there we go. So we've created this weird little thing by deleting a vertice. If we wanted to bring that back, we would have to create a new vertice, which we do in a different tool. So let's go ahead and undo that and go back to our square using a couple undos so we can show the triangulate and optimize. So by default, we're using quads. We are using faces that are a quad or a square for the face. We have the option to triangulate or optimize. Basically, it depends on what you want to do with this. So for example, if I was to click the entire item and hit triangulate, what it's going to do now is triangulate any of my quads, any of my edges. So if you'll notice, this edge is now a triangle, this edge is now a triangle, and it's going to repeat along every single thing. Every single edge is now a triangle. It doesn't really affect the overall appearance. Whoops. Select matching brush, material. As you can see, to our user, it's going to look the same, but to the game engine itself, we now have things triangulated. So if you needed to actually do some more editing in here, you might want to triangulate it. Now the opposite of triangulation is our optimize. It's basically going to try to merge any polygons into a single convex polygon. So we take our brush, which is now triangulated, we click on it and select it and hit optimize. It's now going to optimize all of our edges. We're actually going to be back to how we were before. Let me throw a texture back on here. And we're back to like we were before, where we have 6 different sides, where we have convex, solid polygons. So you might be wondering why we would use that. Well, maybe you want to delete part of a face and you need to add something extra into it. You could always, again, click on an individual face. Like if I clicked here and had this face, I can triangulate just this one face. And you'll notice just this one face will triangulate. One thing to keep in mind, and one reason for the optimization, the triangulation, is if you move something where the geometry is no longer valid for what is set up, it will create new geometry. So in this case, let's say we clicked on here. We have a solid surface at the top, one single polygon, 4 vertices. When I drag this polygon up, this vertice, you're going to notice it changes. Because it can't create a solid item from this corner to this corner like we had before, it now needs to split it into 2 different polygons. We now have 2 different triangles automatically created. And if we were to, for example, create this one, and we can drag it out over here, maybe drag it up, drag it sideways, you're going to start seeing more and more edges start triangulating as we no longer have a solid surface to work on. If we did this last one, it's just going to completely destroy everything. There we go. Now the entire thing pretty much is triangulated. Now if at some point you wanted to bring these back down, or you split them some more, or you did some other things, that is what optimizing is going to be advantages for. You hit optimize, it's going to try and bring everything back to quads. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Let's grab a new brush. And we're going to go ahead and cover our last remaining ones. We have splitting, turning, and welding. Splitting is pretty simple. Basically, it's going to split the brush in half by adding new vertices. This doesn't make duplicates. It's not going to cut it. It's just going to give you more vertices. So for example, if we were to select this edge, we now have the split option. If we were to select this face, we do not. If we were to select these vertices, we do not. If we were to select multiple vertices, like this one and this one, for example, we do have our split option because it allows us to split along the edge between the 2 vertices. Let's go ahead and do split. And what you're going to notice is it's going to try to split where it can appropriately based along those 2 vertices. And you'll notice it's split right here and here into triangles. If we were to undo this and we were to select the edge instead, assuming I freaking hate, there we go, edge, and we do split, what you're going to find is it's going to take this edge and split the edge right down the middle, and it's going to repeat it all the way around. So we now have what looks the same. We now have a face, a face, a face, a face, and it basically drew a line, as you can see here, right down the middle, and it split it. If we want to split it again, maybe into 8, we could select that one, hit split, and now you can see we now have 8 different, we actually have a lot more cubes. And if we want to, we could choose this. Let's pick that edge, make it easier. See, zoomed in, grab the edge, hit split, and now it's split on the middle, and now we have a bunch of different cubes made out of one master cube. And we can always just take and pull out, make this one bigger like that, and then we have this weird looking thing here. Take this one here, move this one out, and you could build, maybe we want to build like a little spaceship. Let's see, that one there. See, then you can grab the edge here. Keep in mind, BSP modeling is not intended to be a replacement for your actual content creation like 3D Max or Modo. It's meant to be just for simple stuff, maybe ladders, ramps, platforms, things like that when you're blocking out a level. But see, I just went ahead and I used the splitting to make this odd looking weird shape. So that's what your split will do. You can select two vertices and you can select edges and it will split between them. Let's go ahead and delete this and go back to our box, and we will check out the weld and we will check out the turn. So turn is odd. Basically, it says given a selected edge common to two triangles, turn the edge so that it's connected to the previously unconnected vertice. Now that may seem a bit odd sounding, but basically what it's going to do, and actually it's kind of cool. If we click on this, I'll show you the wrong way. Actually, I'll show you the right way and then I'll show you the wrong way. So let's say we take this face and we triangulate it. We have this two triangle face. Now if you notice, this edge right here is going from our top left to our bottom right. And this actual polygon has 4 different vertices. What will happen when we hit turn is basically it's going to turn it to connect the other unconnected vertices. So when we turn it, you'll notice this edge is now going from the top right to bottom left. We'll turn it again, it'll go back. Let's just turn it. Let's select it just so you can see. Let's retexture this. Click. Select matching brush. Two materials, texture. Okay, so as you can see, even though that's edge is here, it looks the same. We'll select the edge again. Try to select the, there we go. We'll turn it, and you'll notice even though we're turning the edge, nothing obviously changes because we still have everything appropriate. So that's what turn is going to do. It's if you need to work on an edge or a face or a polygon and the edge is maybe facing the wrong direction, like in this case we wanted to go from here to here, that's what your turn would do. It's going to turn it. Now, the fun part about it is when you grab things that are completely different. Let's go ahead and re-optimize these so it's back to one square. Let's go ahead and select it again and give it the material so it looks normal. Okay, so let's say you grab something like this edge right here. Let's say I grab, there we go. Now if you'll notice, you have some other options here. Basically you have a bunch of different vertices it could go to. So what it's going to do is it's going to try to turn this edge so that way it faces the other unconnected vertices. Now here's what's going to happen. We turn it, and it needs to be triangles, of course. So this is what a triangulate comes into. I forgot about that. And actually here's the cool part. Let's go ahead and select that one and turn it. There we go, like that. So we select this edge and we turn it, and what it did is it basically tried to take the unconnected vertices, this one and this one, and it connected it together. So when we turned it, it basically wiped out what wasn't connected. But you'll also notice it didn't delete the top part. It just triangulated it. So if we were to click up here, we're actually notice we now have this really weird floating vertice. We can delete it, and now we have this really weird shape with some missing parts. We'd have to re-weld. We'd have to reconnect the top back together. Whenever we do that, we click it and we create, and we now have our weird shape back together. So that's what the turn is going to do. It's basically going to turn the edge to try to match up with the unconnected vertices. It's useful when you have it alongside of a face and you need it to go the correct direction. Our last one is going to be weld. Let's go ahead and delete these two faces, and let's see if we can weld things together. Weld is basically going to allow us to take vertices, merge them together based on where we selected the first one. So this is actually bad. Let's go with a cube, because this is gonna come out horribly if we try to do it on that box. we'll go back to weld. Okay, so let's say we were going to weld everything to this corner. If we click on the first one, click on the remaining ones, and then click weld, what you're going to do is see this one move to here, this one will move to here, this one will move to here, and it's going to basically collapse. So now we have this sort of a, if we go to our top view, and we find it, and we moved it more towards the center like that. Now we have a little pyramid because we basically merged and welded the corners together. And you can do that with any amount. Let's say you want to move this one over to here. Click on your first one, hold down Control, click on your second one, and hit weld, and it's basically going to move it over to that corner. So now we have a more of a, almost a skinnier triangle, and really odd triangle, to be honest. Whoa, let's see, click that vertice, move it over like that. Yeah, now we got this wacky triangle, don't we? There we go. So now we got this wacky little triangle. That's what your weld does, basically. Click your first vertice, click any other vertices, click weld, everything else will collapse onto that first one. And it's useful if you need to put things back together or make different looking or odd shapes. That is going to cover all of our different geometry editing options. Other options are covered in other videos. This is just the edit itself. So to summarize, create allows you to create a polygon from vertices, like if you have something floating and you need to create a face, you use the create. Remember, clockwise will give you the normal facing you. Counterclockwise, the normal will not face you. Delete allows you to delete either, delete the polygon faces itself like we did earlier, or the vertices, and delete on the keyboard is a shortcut. Flip flips the normals, so it goes from the other side. Split allows you to split an edge to give you something. So basically it's going to split it down and around, and it will continue along, and it works best when it's along a uniform or a mirrored like surface, like a cube, where that way you're not going to get something really weird like this. Because I don't have a other face right here, it's going down to here, here, and then it's trying to go back to here, but because I don't have a face on that side, the split is failing on that side. Triangulate basically will triangulate any face. Optimize will optimize everything back to the appropriate amount of polygons. Turn allows you to take and turn any edge to the appropriate other vertices, and weld allows us to grab a bunch of vertices and weld them all to one master vertice like this, which is going to completely destroy this. There we go. See, I welded all those floating ones back to my first one. Like for example, this one here and this one here, I could do weld, and it's going to, well, assuming I clicked on it properly. Oops, there you go. And it's going to weld that one back to here. It's a way of getting rid of floating vertices. That's it. It's going to cover the geometry editing edit. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below.